I'm going to open up the meeting at 6:02. This is the Community Preservation Committee meeting. It's the regular meeting of the CPC. It's being held in the Don B. Griffin Room, Harwich Town Hall, 732 Main Street at 6 p.m. Thursday, February 9th. The general request is if anybody is audio or video taping this meeting, please let the chair know. The town is going to do that. Welcome guests. Any comments from the guests? The guests have the floor. Sir, would you please identify yourself?
Certainly. Anthony Schiavi, Orleans Road, East Harwich. I'm here tonight with my wife Debbie and her sister Diane, all proud Air Force veterans representing 84 years of service to our nation. I mention that only because we're here because we recently learned of the Cemetery Commission's important project that they have before you this year regarding the Civil and Revolutionary War Memorial. And it's a worthy project. I think as I looked at it, I recently retired as a town administrator, and having worked with many CPC committees on a lot of projects, it's not lost to me the important work that you do and sometimes the difficulty you have because there are many worthy projects with a lot of merit to them and certainly a limited amount of money, thankfully, that we get to replenish on an annual basis as you look at those projects. I think in this particular case, this is a very, I think, important project for our town in recognizing those from Harwich that served our nation, starting in this particular project with, the beginning of our nation. I think what intrigued me about it was partly when I learned that it was part of the Cemetery Commission's master plan, because it showed to me anyways, good management and thoughtful planning, because those are our most sacred places that we have in town. And I'm sure that over the course of years, there's many things that they have to think about and do in the course of their work to make sure that those sacred spaces are taken care of appropriately. And so I know a lot of times projects get, perhaps kicked down the road a little bit for various reasons. But I think in the case of a town commission like this with a lot of projects, even though you could perhaps set it off a little bit, it impacts everything that perhaps is in that master plan to the point where if a project, maybe comes up as more priority, this one may not get done. And so I think timing-wise, it is good and appropriate, and I thank you for your time and your deliberation this evening and hope you look favorably upon the Cemeteries Commission project and the great work that they put into this, and again, through their master plan, which kudos to them for doing that. That doesn't always happen. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak?
Tell them that you're not going to give him a chance to speak later.
Moving on. Approval of the minutes for January 12th, 2023. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 12th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, new business, possible update of CPC numbers. You have the information in front, the board members have all the information in front. Are there any questions of the board members? John, go ahead.
As usual, I'm confused by these numbers. Excuse me. So most of it's straightforward. The one thing that is never clear to me is the land bank debt service, whether that is included in these whether that has been already removed from the bottom line numbers or whether we need to take that out of the bottom line numbers.
Mary?
If you'll let me. So if you have this spreadsheet in front of you.
Oh, that's it. Oh, this, okay.
This one,
I haven't seen that.
That's the
So-
most updated, John.
This is what I prepared to go along with, so we'll circle back. At the last meeting, I volunteered to prepare motions. I prepared draft motions based on the applications. They're strictly at the application amount. If somebody, they'll be subject to seconds and potential amendments if people so choose to do that. But what I did along with that was the Excel spreadsheet to show the debts out of each of what we considered were the buckets. So I will say yes, the land bank debt I accounted for is coming out of what appeared to be the certified undesignated balance from FY 2022. So I can talk to those numbers, where those starting numbers, balances came from when we get there. But yes, that land bank number, the 166,650, does come out of our available funds.
So it still has to be removed from these bottom line numbers.
So it's removed from, so it is based on the numbers that we
Right.
started with on balances. So, and I can explain that before we get into the motions and tell you where I came up with where for my bottom lines.
Honestly, still unclear to me.
Yeah, me too.
Carol?
So, Mary, the remaining balance is by account.
Yep.
That is the amount available.
So that would be the remaining balances. So we made some assumptions. So if you look to the most recent item that came from the finance director that has the yellow on the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not the one that David handed out earlier, it's the one with the
That's,
yellow.
it's 2823.
Correct. If you go to the third page of that, it gives us estimated FY '24 based on the 3% surcharge and based on the state revenue, right? So those are the estimates that the finance director has given us, which are presumably conservative estimates based on what she anticipates would receive next year. So that money is available for us to appropriate as anticipated revenues. Where comes to the certified FY '22 balance, that's typically what we would say we know is certified. I asked for some help with Kathy when we were putting the motions together, and we lowballed the buckets on, so the 814, we lowballed to 210, which would typically be what we would allocate every year. We lowballed historic to 250 because we know we didn't spend we didn't spend the whole historic bucket last year. We know we cleaned out the open space bucket last year, and I think we cleaned out the community housing bucket last year. So we went with 210, 250, and 210 on those, hoping that they were conservative estimates. And then when we went through and did the motions, prepared the motions based on the amounts requested by the applicants, we still seem to have enough money to fund everything if the board so chose to fund everything. So that's where those starting balances came from. As you go across the board, the certified numbers and then the anticipated revenue numbers. And then the total across the board as to what we started with, thinking we could spend, and then with what we totally spent. So looking at the balances on the bottom, yes, we didn't spend 85 of the 210,000 in the certified open space balance that we believe we have. We didn't spend about 2,000 in the undesignated anticipated revenues. We didn't spend just under 7,000 under the certified undesignated 2022 certified numbers. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody,
Yes, now it does.
but that's where we came from. So as you can see, we took a lot out of the undesignated anticipated revenues based on those kinds of conservative assumptions that we made going forward, and we're still able to fund everything if the board chose.
And
I want to make this clear to the board. This is the third iteration of documents that we have. We're doing the best we can with what we have from numbers. Nobody on this board is the finance director of the town of Harwich. But we're doing the best we can. So, we're gonna move on. Anybody else? Go ahead, Elizabeth, you have the floor.
is this the last year of land bank debt?
Yes.
Yes,
it is.
yes.
Thank you.
Anything else from any of the board members? Okay, moving on. Discussion online CPC application. John, you have the floor.
Yeah, so I sent an email earlier this week with a link to what I would call a draft, somewhat rough draft version of an online application form. Thank Bob for actually going on there and trying it out and doing a dummy application and seeing what the result is, and it highlighted a few issues. We have other things to do tonight. I wanted to bring this to the attention of the committee now, so we have plenty of time to work through whatever issues there are, so that if we so decide, we can actually go ahead with this for the next cycle. I had comments from Bob. I replied to those comments. You all got an email. I'd appreciate any other comments, and we'll respond to them with the chair's indulgence. And I think we
As
should.
long as we keep paper. You've got the floor, sir.
Well, the proposal at the moment, which I also had a lengthy discussion with Kathy about this a week or two ago, and the current proposal is that the process would include 3 paper copies. And again, that's just open to discussion at the moment. Having paper copies and an online application are not mutually exclusive things. But going online, having everybody fill out a form in the same way and having it available online, I think, is a step forward. But I will pause here and take questions.
Mary?
I will admit freely, I was one of the many holdouts on paper, and I found myself even this year really just relying on the online forms as opposed to my stack of paper. So I am less adamant about insisting on having a paper copy, as long as it can be housed somewhere appropriately and the town can adequately manage it as a public record and through the retention process. So that's the only concern I would have on the electronic version.
All set, Mary.
Yes. It's a surprising answer for me.
Thank you. Carol?
Joining the night.
So I thought it was great. Thank you, John. And I guess question or just clarification, so members of the CPC would be able to just see the online version without having to receive, because now we get the packet. We wouldn't be getting the packet, we would just have access to a portal or a link or whatever to see, or they'd be emailed as PDFs.
Either of those or both. I mean, we haven't, there's a whole sort of other area that I haven't completely resolved and don't completely understand what the options are of. I mean, so far, the public doesn't have access like the day, on October 4th, for instance, or this year. There's a process where we gather all that stuff and upload it, and a week or two later, or maybe after our next meeting, I have been putting them up on the website. It's really a committee decision about how that would work. They won't automatically be publicly available as soon as someone submits an application. There's some manual steps, unless there's some process that I don't know about now, but there will be manual steps to put it on the CPC web page and make it available to anybody who can get to the CPC webpage, which should be anybody. They're not complicated or involved manual steps, they're just manual steps. And it isn't a whole lot different from what I've been doing for the last however many years it's been. It's different, but it is more work, really. And the same with, the committee has to talk about, does the committee actually want a physical signature on the application? Should we include that in the process, or do we care whether there's a physical, actual, real, verifiable signature, or just a simple name? I mean, those things are just decisions, but they're not limitations about how the thing would work.
Yeah, there's DocuSign.
So I just encourage people to look at it some more, think about what the actual process is for someone who's doing the application, maybe go through and do it, you know, a fake application yourself, just to see what the process is like, and think about it, and then when we get to it at a subsequent meeting, maybe in April, we can talk about the details and try to make decisions.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, as somebody who's been on this committee since 2011, I have kept the hard copies of every application, and my file is like this high. And you know I've been a hard copy holdout. But I've come to the dark side.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to convert. So John has done a great job.
Thank you. The other thing to keep in mind is that the town is changing its internal software, and that process is happening now, and they're going to Microsoft 365, which will mean that online storage and access for documents will be different than it has been in the past. And I don't know the details of that and how that will interwork with this, but we'll figure that out in the next several months, and we'll be able to talk about it more.
Okay, anything else from the board? Kelly?
I'm in support for having an online version and with the option for printing for paper. I do recognize one of the limitations of uploading attachments, and as you said, we won't have that update on file size upload until after the next application period, but I do agree that it's worth it to be starting this process now and, you know, see what the kinks are.
All set? Thank you. John, all set? Okay, moving on. Discussion and voting the rescinded balances of the CPC. We're not doing that tonight.
We don't have any.
We don't have any. Okay. I put that on just to cover the. All right, follow-ups from do any of the applicants want to speak at this point? We already had one group speak. Would anybody else like to speak? I am going to allow discussion during the voting if someone from the public needs to have a say. So normally, we don't do that, but in this case, I've been led down the dark path.
He's gone onto the
So-
dark side.
Okay, we're gonna
It's a
start.
bloody miracle tonight.
Let's,
It's a full moon or something.
okay, get a hold of yourself, folks. Decision and possible voting, the 22-23 CPA funding requests. We're gonna start first with the land bank debt service. Is there a motion?
So I'll make a motion, David, that I move that we approve $166,650 from the undesignated fund account, consisting of $166,650 from the FY 2022 undesignated fund certified balance to fund the land bank debt service.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion to the board, and I'm gonna go individually. Elizabeth?
No, I understand it now, and this is the last one, right? So, yippee.
Kaye? John?
Don't follow them.
No discussion, no comments, thank you.
Robert?
No comments.
Kathy?
No,
Mary?
None.
Kelly?
No comments.
Carol?
thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
So the next one is
Admin.
the administration fund. Is there a motion
So the next.
with the numbers?
So the next motion I would make, David, tracks typically what we see in our town meeting article, and it is the allocation of funds into the various buckets. So I move that we vote to appropriate and allocate the following sums of money from the FY 2024 estimated annual revenues of the Harwich Community Preservation Act Fund as required by General Law, Chapter 44B, and Chapter 149, Section 298 of the Acts of 2004 as follows. A sum of money for the acquisition, creation, and preservation of the open space. So open space reserve is $198,700. A sum of money for the acquisition, preservation, restoration, and rehabilitation of historic resources. The historic preservation reserve is $198,700. A sum of money for the acquisition, creation, preservation, and support of community housing. The community housing reserve is $198,700. A sum of money for administrative expenses, the administrative expense allocation is $50,000. And the remainder of anticipated revenues to be placed in the undesignated fund balance to be available for use for open space, historic, community housing, and recreation in accordance with the Community Preservation Act requirements. The undesignated fund anticipated number is $1,390,900. And I put that in only so that folks could see how it tied into the spreadsheet. Typically, we don't necessarily have that in there.
All set, Mary?
All set.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Discussion. Kelly?
I just had a question on clarification. Can you remind me what the administrative funds go towards?
So,
Go ahead, you have the
so
floor.
we use them for things like, if a survey needs to be done, some of those things can't be done with Preservation Act open space monies. There are, some of the administrative fees would go towards legal counsel. Some of them will go to pay Jan for her time as the board secretary. So it can be a wide range of different items. But like I said, in addition to the standard, it's the things that sometimes can't be paid out of preservation funds. And Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, like last year with the allocation for Spruce Woods, there was a request for money to pay for
$12,500 to pay for work that went towards the filing for the CR and filing for the land grant, the LAND grant for the Spruce Woods project that we had.
So those things couldn't come out of the regular open space allocation, it had to come out of administrative funds.
Thank you.
All set, Kelly?
All set.
Mary? No?
All set for me?
Okay. Elizabeth?
So is there, I can't do math in my head, I can't do it on paper either. Is there a total amount that we're putting
Yep, so
for
if you
admin?
look to the bottom line of the, on the third page of the 2.8 document that came
This
from the
one?
finance director, see where it says total, I think it's a typo. It said total estimated FY '23 revenue, I think it's really 24, because it's a sum of the 24 surcharge revenue and the 24 state revenue.
Yeah,
That's what we put into the buckets. That's the 198.
I didn't get it, the third page, or I didn't print
Did
it
you
out.
get this page?
Let me, I give it.
No, I just got this one page from her. So the total
See this
is,
right here?
that's how much we're putting into admin?
No, not admin.
Right, that's what I
This is the
want.
whole thing.
Yeah, I just was wondering if we had a number for what we're actually
keep
going to
this.
keep for administrative funds.
Well, we just put in 50.
50 is it? Okay. Thank you.
All set, Elizabeth?
I misunderstood you, Elizabeth.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I just,
Yeah, the
Okay.
50 is
I just
coming
like,
from
I'm
the
trying to
designated. Yep.
figure out
Kelly, I'll
everything.
come back to you. John?
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, so, in the past, we've had 4 buckets, unless I don't remember correctly. You have 5. The 5th is this administrative funds. I thought that in the past, they came out of the undesignated bucket, but where are those funds coming from? I get where they're
So if you
going
look at the
to.
spreadsheet, it is coming out of the undesignated funds, John?
But I thought that number, there wasn't an extra 50. I mean, I'm looking at the thing that Jan sent today, I think.
So I'm just asking you to look at the legal size spreadsheet that I gave you. That will show you, the thing that Jan sent you had a total for FY. If you
24.
added the 1,180,900 and the 210, gave you the $1,390,900.
Yeah,
That's where we started with the balance, and then you can see the 50,000 for the administrative funds allocation comes out of there.
I don't see how that answers my question. I'm sorry. It's a detail, but I just want to understand it. Where's that money coming from?
The undesignated fund. We've always,
Where is that in this source material? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Oh,
There's a number which says total estimated FY '23 revenue,
Yep.
which is actually FY '24 revenue,
That's
right?
my understanding,
It
yeah.
says here on that spreadsheet, $1,390,900. You're adding 50,000 on
I'm
top.
taking 50
Oh,
away from
wait,
it.
wait,
away.
it's,
I'm taking
it's a
50 out of
credit.
it.
I'm sorry, it's a count. It's,
All right, I'm
debiting it.
I
Debit.
see, yeah,
It's a
okay,
debit,
all
not
right,
a
all right.
I know, we all,
But,
everybody has.
but then in your motion,
Yep.
you're not taking that out. But
So.
you're just,
so
that's
this
what's
motion is-
confusing about this.
This motion is
I
an
see.
allocation,
Yeah, okay,
really?
I got it.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, now it
Because I've
does.
accounted for it.
In the other spreadsheet.
We've accounted for it on the
Okay,
spreadsheet.
thank you.
All set, John, for the moment.
For now, until I have another
I
question.
mean,
Robert.
we can do
I'll-
an additional motion if people would prefer.
I'm all set.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. We'll go for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ready for the next motion, David?
Hold on.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take care of that. All right, we're gonna go, Mary, what was the second part of what you were saying? I'm
Um,
sorry.
The next motion I have on my list is for Bell's Neck.
Okay. Yeah, I'd prefer, but she's got the motions lined up in a different manner.
All right, she can go out of
I
order.
can jump around.
All right,
Just
so,
understand that the buckets they came from was based on the order in which I drafted them.
that's critical at this point. So, go ahead.
You
We'll
wanna
go with
next?
yours, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the next motion I have is I move that we approve $125,000 from the FY 2022 open space certified balance to fund the Bells Neck Road Herring River Land Preservation Project that was open space number 1 for application number.
Okay, the motion is on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Is a second discussion? Kelly?
No additional comments.
Elizabeth?
Love it.
John?
No additional comments.
Bob?
No additional comments.
Kathy?
All set?
Ready for a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You've got the floor, Mary.
The next item I have on, next motion I have to propose is I move that we approve $500,000 consisting of $210,000 from the 2022 Certified Community Housing Fund, sorry, there's a word missing, and $198,700 from the FY 2024 Community Housing Anticipated Revenue Fund, and $91,300 from the FY 2024 Undesignated Fund Anticipated Revenue to fund the Affordable Housing Trust, and that is AH2 for the application number,
A total of
Second.
500,000.
for a total of $500,000.
I second
Okay,
it.
we have a motion and a second discussion. We'll start with Elizabeth.
Absolutely not. I'm not giving them a dime right now. And if anybody's been paying attention to what's going on, it should be very clear why. But I'm not giving them a dime. I don't think we should.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Carol?
No comment.
John?
I think I'm on board with Elizabeth. Excuse me. I don't think I would put it that way. It's funding that's necessary, but there's a fair amount of turmoil right now in terms of the housing trust, which has been pretty public turmoil, and I would prefer to wait until they can articulate their mission statement clearly to us, is the way I would put it.
'Cause you're nicer than
Okay, thank you, John. Did I, Kelly?
No, you did not ask me yet.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm concerned about the amount of money that's requested, just based off of the lack of detail that we've received. So I'm personally not interested in awarding this amount.
Okay, Robert?
I do believe we should fund the full amount of $500,000. The committee does have internal issues, but I think they'll be straightened out. The trust does need to have funds available to do their work, particularly if there are other opportunities of land becoming available, or if they choose, and they've talked about this, is doing mortgage buy-downs, which also increases our stock of affordable housing. And I just don't want to throw the baby out with the dirty bathwater, basically. So I am definitely in support of this. They can use the money, and certainly one lot that they bought on Pea Lake Avenue is not nearly sufficient to fill our needs and requirement for the town from the state of the 10%. So I am in favor of funding this, the full amount.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Mary?
So I say this, I feel like I repeat myself every year, but I'm gonna say it again. The way the town chose to set up the trust was that it is a fiduciary trust, that the proposal was always to fund the trust, and that the trustees would, under the appointment of the Board of Selectmen, would make the decisions to be able to create and preserve affordable housing within the town of Harwich. I think I don't dispute that there are some challenges going on with the trust at the moment, but to not give them an annual appropriation will put them even significantly further behind and will impinge their ability, if they turn it around tomorrow and decide what their budget is gonna be and decide to do, whether it's build, whether it's buy, whether it is do a buy-down program, whether it's to do their own rental program that mimics but maybe has a greater allocation, that the housing authority has chosen not to increase theirs, and they haven't spent that money. If the housing trust decides to do those things, the only way they can do any of that is if they have a budget. And to not fund them this year, we have, I know we've relied on faith on a lot of this, but they did spend money in the past year. They did purchase a piece of property. There is plenty that still needs to be done. And for them to not have any funds, additional funds allocated to them this year, I think further puts them behind the 8 ball and will put us further behind. All we're hearing at both selectmen's meetings and at the trust meeting is how far behind they are. This is only, not giving the money is only gonna put them further behind. So I am in support of the $500,000. I think the Board of Selectmen has started to take notice, and my hope is that progress will start to be made, but I can't explain why no progress was made during the pandemic, but nothing was made. We're coming out of the pandemic, so hopefully things will start getting moving, but I am in support of giving them a balance, giving them some funds.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Kathy?
As I've said before, I'm not sure that money is necessarily the answer for them right now. We know that they have close to $1 million in revenue right now, as stated by Mr. Powers at one of our meetings. They do have 5 or 6 parcels of land that they could sell for funding if it was needed. I'm more in favor of, we have had years when we have not funded them.
We've had years where they didn't ask either.
Yeah. I am in favor of funding them of a lesser amount, but I'd like to see where this motion's gonna go, and then I might make another motion.
Oh, said Kathy. Carol?
So just, and I think this might support Mary and Bob's comments, but I think that, I mean, if the amount requested were funded, it would not be lost. I mean, it would be available to them. If they don't spend it, it's not, you know, it could be returned to the CPC, right? I mean, it could be returned to the fund.
No,
No,
it
it
can't.
doesn't go
They-
for
Once
that.
it
No, it
once it
doesn't.
goes to the housing trust, it becomes their money.
So unlike other,
Mhm.
okay. But it would be available in perpetuity then? It wouldn't,
them.
Right. So if somebody else had a housing project, we wouldn't have that money for them.
until next year?
There's a caveat to that. They still have to follow, by legislation, CPC guidelines.
Right,
That's all.
right.
Mary?
I can make the same argument with the fact that we haven't rescinded money from the affordable, from the housing authority. There's money sitting in a balance account. It's to fund a good program, so we haven't rescinded it. I'd like to think that the trust is getting on board and going to start doing things. And I'd like to see them have the money to be able to do it.
Any other board member? Well, in the very beginning, I took the leap of faith, and I've been taking the leap of faith for the past 5 years.
I know.
And I've seen what everybody else has seen on this board. I don't know where it stops. I don't know if there's a necessary message to be sent to the trust. If that message was sent, it would be sent from this board with a majority of the funding of that trust. And I am upset about it. And I don't want to do any damage to the people that need the help. I don't want to go any further than that. I'm going to put this motion on the floor for a vote. Is there a vote? We have a vote, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, all set, Jan?
So we have 3. Yes.
All those opposed? Okay, it's a vote.
So the vote was 5-3? Just asking. For clarity, we're on camera, so.
Yes,
wanna make sure
5-3.
People know what we voted, that's all.
Kathy?
I'd like to make a motion to fund the trust in the amount of $250,000. And that would be 210 from 2022 certified community housing and 40 from FY 2024 community housing anticipated revenue.
I'll second that motion.
So there's a motion and a second. I'm gonna lean on Mary for, do we have to, if this goes through?
So the first motion failed, so there's a second motion
Okay,
on the floor.
all right, so, discussion. We have a motion and a second. Kelly?
I support this motion, and I was thinking very similarly to Kathy's suggestion that we give them some funds, but not the full amount, so I support this.
Okay, anybody, any other board member? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
7.
I'm sorry, Dan, 71 you said?
Yes.
250.
Mr. Chair,
Second motion, yeah.
John?
can I just ask to confirm the amounts? 210 from 2022 and 40 from
So-
2024 community housing funds.
That's what Kathy said.
Right.
So
Okay.
if you go to the spreadsheet, the We go across to the affordable housing, the 210 would stay, and 91.3 would disappear. So you would add 91.3 back. And then
190.
198.7 would turn into 40.
Wait a minute.
All set, John?
Yeah, I'm all set, thanks.
Okay, Mary, you have,
1 second.
okay.
So that vote, just for clarification for everybody on the spreadsheet in front of you, will leave 158,700 for the balance for the last column before the totals, for the FY 2024 community housing anticipated revenues. And it would change the balance in the FY 2024 undesignated to would change the balance in the FY 2024 undesignated anticipated revenues to 93,317 and 60 cents.
Because you,
Do you have that?
No, but I don't need to have it.
Okay.
So the next item I have for a motion, David, if you're ready.
Yep, go ahead. You've
I
got
move
the
that
floor.
we approve $7,500, consisting of $7,500 from the FY 2022 certified undesignated funds to fund the Lower Cape Housing Institute.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
No, I will say we can take that, we can change that and take it out of community housing, or we can leave it where it was. Because we now have a balance in community
Oh.
housing. So I will defer to the team's,
Take it out of community
Preference.
housing.
I'd take it out of community housing.
take it out of community housing. So let me redo my motion.
Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna
Yep,
say,
yep.
I move that we approve $7,500
This is riveting, isn't it? I tell you, you're all excited.
from
My
FY
husband.
2024, community housing anticipated revenues to fund the Lower Cape Housing Institute, and that is AH3,
For the amount?
for the amount of $7,500.
Okay.
Right.
Is there a second?
Second.
So we'll go to discussion. Elizabeth,
Fine.
John,
I'm fine, thank
Kelly,
you.
Mary,
Fine.
Bob,
Fine.
Kathy?
Fine.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Are you noting that Carol accusing herself?
Yeah.
No, Carol, when you step back. No?
Yes.
Just write it,
Somebody has to
please.
just show me.
Okay.
Just write it. Mary, you have the floor.
So the next application I was going to address is the Brooks Academy Museum applications. So it's a bit of a lengthy motion. So I move that we approve $640,000 to fund the exterior preservation and window restoration at Brooks Academy Museum, and an additional $50,000 to fund combination storm windows in the event that the preservation is determined that the combination storm windows are necessary to the preservation. Said appropriations consisting of $250,000 from FY 2022 historic certified balance, $198,700 from FY 2024 historic anticipated revenues, and $241,300 from FY 2024 undesignated estimated revenues, and that should total up to $690,000 total.
I make a second to that motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor and a second. Discussion. Let's start with Robert.
Yeah, being a representative from the historic district, we are definitely for the appropriating the full amount as recommended in the motion. So we are in total support.
Thank you, Robert. Mary?
I'm gonna say ditto to what Bob said, and I will say that, the concern was, leaving them where we asked them to reduce, to see if there were any reductions. There was also the concern that, geez, maybe if they did need more money to fund the windows, that they decided they needed better, the combination storms, that at least we could hopefully set some money aside for that, only to be used for that purpose. That's the reason for the extra 50,000
Okay.
that I proposed.
Kelly?
I'm in support, no additional comments.
John?
No additional comments.
Elizabeth?
Glad it worked out.
Carol?
No further comments.
Okay, let's have a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Moving on. Mary, you have the floor.
Okay. All right, so I move that we approve $256,282.40 to fund the Revolutionary War and Civil War Memorial, consisting of $256,282.40 from the FY 2024 undesignated fund anticipated revenue. That is application H6.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Discussion. Elizabeth, go ahead.
I see Robin's here. You were going before the select board to talk about getting donations. May I ask her to speak to that?
Robin, please identify yourself and you get the floor.
Yes, Robin Kelly, Cemetery Administrator. I did send out all of the letters. I am going to be getting funds in. I only have received 2 checks so far, and they're smaller checks, but I can then send you updates periodically as we get closer to town meeting, because you might have to adjust my number when we go to town meeting. The place that's giving me the larger amount has to have a board meeting to discuss the actual amount. So that hasn't happened. It's going to happen in the next week or so. So I just don't have it right now.
Okay, thank you, Robin. All set, Elizabeth?
Yes, thank you.
John?
No comments.
Robert?
We're in full support of this motion.
Kathy?
I think it's a lot of money. So I'm not sure if I am interested in funding the total amount. I'd be interested in funding part of it with the hopes that that would be a little push for more donations to come in to offset the total amount. It's just personal opinion, that's all.
All set?
Yep.
Mary?
Just a question for you to Robin.
Go ahead.
Robin, I know at one of our earlier meetings, we had talked about maybe approaching Brewster's CPC.
I
Do you
did.
know what their funding cycle is?
I guess their cycle, I believe it's in December. So, but I did, what I'm doing now is I researched where all of them are buried, and there are only 24 Revolutionary War veterans that are buried in Brewster out of the 284. So even if it was, I don't think they'd be giving us that much money towards the memorial, as not that many of the soldiers are buried here. We have more of our soldiers buried, believe it or not, in Dennis than we have in Brewster. So it's where you went into service, into record, and they went into service here in Harwich, and they were Harwich soldiers, so they're our responsibility for the memorial. There actually is a lot of them that are not even recognized anywhere, that they don't have memorials whatsoever. A couple of them died on prison ships, and they have no memorials anywhere. So some of these people were not recognized at all. So I think it's important to this town that we recognize those fallen heroes especially.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks,
Robin. Mary, you all set?
I'm all set.
Kelly?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Carol?
Just a question, if I may, for Robin.
Sorry, Carol.
Thank you. Robin, I know in past funding rounds, your numbers have been higher, the numbers that came in have been lower than what you.
Right, so I really try to vet all my projects and put them out to as many people as possible, and I try to get a number lower than what you guys have given me, because I don't want to go over on budget, so I've returned money pretty consistently in all my CPC articles to you guys, so I don't try to go up to the actual limit of, and when I went out to bid, it was, hopefully, this will go out to bid the same way, and the numbers will come in lower. I don't know, but I put it for, you have to pay for every letter on every single name for these memorials. So I went with somebody who, I wouldn't say is high, but is probably right on the money, but there'll be other people that will probably bid on it that will be lower. So I don't know the total until we put it out to bid.
Thank you.
All set, Carol?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna put it to the board for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Mary, you have the floor.
So the next item I have is I move that we approve $350,000 from the FY 2024 undesignated fund anticipated revenues to fund the 203 Bank Street preservation of the old fire station. That is historic application number 8.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. Robert?
Again, the Historic Commission did approve this project and encourages it to go before the town meeting and be passed.
Kelly? Thank you, Robert.
I'm in support of this project, no comments.
Okay, Kelly. John?
No further comments?
Mary?
So I will echo Bob's comments on historic. I am also in favor of this, supporting this application. And I also think it would be a shame for us to not somewhat fix up that building when the trailhead is right next door, and it's going to be hopefully more visible than ever before, so.
Elizabeth? Thank
I
you,
love
Mary.
this. I think it's great, and it helps support one of the other projects we funded in the past, which was the trail, because now it really makes it all a wonderful destination.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Kathy?
No comment.
Okay, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That's it? Mary, you have the floor.
All right, I move that we approve $13,000 from the FY 2024 undesignated fund anticipated revenues on the Oak Street bike path crossing lights. It is Recreation 9.
I second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Discussion. We'll start with Carol.
I think this is great.
Elizabeth?
Great.
I
Kelly?
think it's a real safety need, so I'm in support.
John?
No comments?
Mary?
No comments.
Robert?
I'm in support.
Kathy?
No comment.
Okay, motion on the floor, second, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
I should have said ununanimous. Sorry.
No.
Mary, you have the floor.
The next item I have on the to move is senior softball field. So I move that we approve $150,000 from the FY 2024 undesignated fund anticipated revenues to fund the senior softball field restroom project, and that is application R10.
There's a
Second.
motion and there's a second.
Second.
Discussion. We'll start with Robert.
I'm fine with it.
Kelly?
In support.
John?
No comments?
Mary?
I'm in support, and particularly considering they have put their own money, some of their own money, towards assisting with the funding, so I think we should, fully support the project.
Elizabeth,
Oh, I see, it's all coming from the undesignated.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, fine, great.
Carol,
I'm all set, thank you.
Kathy.
All set?
All right, motion second, discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mary, you have the floor.
Next item I have is the Brooks Park Tennis Court Pickleball resurfacing. I move that we approve $110,000 from FY 2024 undesignated fund, anticipated revenues, to fund the Brooks Park Tennis Court Pickleball resurfacing project. That is application recreation 11.
Second?
There's a motion and a second, discussion. Elizabeth,
Fine.
Carol,
All set, thank you.
John,
No comment.
Kelly,
All set.
Robert,
All set.
Kathy,
All set?
Mary.
All set?
Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mary, you have the floor.
Next item I have is the Sand Pond restroom. So I move that we approve $35,000 from FY 2024 undesignated fund anticipated revenues from the Sand Pond restroom additional funding request, which is recreation application 12.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. Carol,
I'm all set, thank you.
Kelly,
All set.
Mary,
All set?
Kathy,
All set?
Robert.
Finally, I'd like to get it finished.
John,
All set.
Elizabeth.
All set.
Okay. Is there a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mary, you have the floor.
So the last item I have is the Skinnequit Pond remediation project. I move that we approve $92,000 from the FY 2024 undesignated fund anticipated revenues to fund Skinnequit Pond remediation project, that is, Recreation 14.
Second?
There's a motion on the floor and the second. Discussion. Carol,
I support this.
Elizabeth,
It's fine.
Kelly,
All set.
John, Robert.
Yeah, I had asked a question about further what the WASH would be doing, and they did respond to it satisfactorily, and so I'm full support of this.
Thank you, Robert. Mary,
All set?
Kathy.
All set?
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mary, you have the floor.
So that was the last motion I had, David. I just want to go back and kind of update the totals on the bottom of the spreadsheet.
Go ahead.
So, it looks like, and I will use the computer to make sure that I've done the math correctly, but it looks like the certified undesignated for FY 22 should end up being $14,351.51. We made no changes in the open space for FY 2022 certified. We made no changes in the FY 2022 certified for historic. We made no changes in the FY 2022 certified for community housing. We added back in $91,300 into the FY 2024 undesignated.
What was that number again? I'm sorry.
FY 91,300.
91,300, this
So
right
it
up here.
should be,
Okay. Excuse me.
Right.
93,317.60.
93,317.60, yep. And then, with the changes to community housing anticipated revenue, we started with 198,700. We took 40,000, and then we took an additional 7,500. That should leave us with a balance of 151,200 in FY 2024 community housing anticipated revenue. And that was based on having funding of the Affordable Housing Trust.
What was that final number? I'm sorry.
151,200.
And so you, excuse me.
Okay. Carol,
Just to clarify, so that's why you took the 7,500 there instead of?
Correct,
Yeah.
moved it from
Yeah.
undesignated, certified undesignated into the community housing bucket.
Oh, I'm in the wrong.
Yeah, I said that.
John,
Okay, so I've been tracking these and I think I must have put a number in the wrong
I
place.
can't hear you, John, I'm sorry.
Excuse me. I've been tracking these in, my version of the spreadsheet, and I must have put a number in the wrong place because I have a negative balance in historic for 2024. And so the problem appears to be war memorials. Was that motion to put that in 24 historic?
So historic had 250 in certified historic, 250. Then it had 198,700 out of
Right.
FY 2024 historic anticipated revenue. And then 241,300 in FY 2024 undesignated and unanticipated revenue. Undesignated revenue.
Where did the war memorials go?
The war memorials came under undesignated anticipated revenue.
Right underneath it, it's 256.
Yeah, right, okay, thank you.
Historic, because the
Yeah, I just put it in the wrong place.
Brooks
in the
Academy was
spreadsheet.
the earlier vote. By the time we got to the memorials, we were down into the undesignated fund.
And what did you say your balances were for the 2024?
So FY 2024 undesignated anticipated revenue ends up at $93,317.60.
And for the other three categories in 24?
We didn't touch it should be 198,700 for anticipated revenue for open space for 2024. We zeroed out historic,
Oh,
and for community housing, it should have $151,200
yeah, right.
in the FY 2024.
Thank you.
All right.
okay, anything else from any questions from any board member? Okay. We've done our jobs, folks. The next thing under old business, is there anything anybody wants on the next agenda? Do we need to touch base? Am I missing anything?
Yes,
What?
we want to have a vote on the December 15, 2022 amended motions. Minutes.
Right.
Okay. So, would someone make a motion to that effect?
Oh, it's gonna be on next time's agenda.
No, we can have it
We
under
c-
other.
Oh, we can do
We
it now?
can do it now.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll make a motion to accept the amended minutes from December, what was it?
15.
December 15, 2022.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
Could you just
Carol.
identify the amendment?
There were spelling, typo, and
okay,
just
so-
general,
yeah.
it wasn't anything
Got it.
significant.
Okay.
Okay, motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, what else do we
When is our next scheduled meeting, if I may ask?
have? The next scheduled meeting is the 16th of this month, but that's not gonna happen because we managed to get through this tonight.
Woo-hoo.
So, the next,
Canceling that.
I'm canceling that meeting. Kelly, I'm sorry. Kelly.
Robert. I've
It's not Bob.
Yeah, but you both have red shirts.
I know.
Drafting, social media, posts and working with the library, so I will have an update for that and some drafts to circulate for next meeting.
Okay.
Can I ask what our March meeting date is then?
I have to talk to the secretary after she's
It's
done
on
that.
the
It's
Second
also
Thursday
the
of the month.
9th.
But it's on this, it's March 9th.
Yeah, with
I'm
February.
just wondering
8th.
if we should put on an agenda item for potential town meeting, in case we need to do something else before town meeting.
Yes,
Just saying.
yes.
That's kind of was my reason for
With
asking
the
the last
town
question.
meeting?
Will we know in March, though?
We might
We might.
have questions.
Okay.
At least if we have an agenda, then we can deal with it.
Town meeting when? I missed what you're saying.
Potential discussion
discussion
of
about-
needing a special meeting before town meeting to
Discuss financing.
to re-
Put it to where it is, to discuss
Refine.
financing.
Just a pre-town meeting discussion.
All set, Jim?
And I would like to put the design competition on that agenda as well.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you for that comment.
For the public, I'm trying to set up a competition for the kids at Cape Cod Tech to design a logo, so let them know. I'm playing phone tag and email tag.
Okay, is there anything anybody else wants on the agenda? We've made it through, folks. Is there a motion to go home?
Motion to adjourn.
All
Second,
those in favor? Second, all those in favor? Aye.
thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
I'd like to point out it's 7:09.
Yeah, that's amazing.